What if I told you that a medication designed to help manage diabetes is now being celebrated as the answer to body shame? That skipping meals, losing your appetite, and barely eating is suddenly seen not as a red flag, but a success. And what if, after years of fighting for body acceptance, the cultural tide is shifting so fast that we're watching all that progress get washed away by a single weekly injection? In this episode, we're talking about Ozempic and other GLP-1 medications. But we're not just talking about weight loss. We're talking about pressure, about fear, about legitimacy, about what happens when disordered behaviors get prescribed and praised. This is a compassionate, research-backed, shame-free conversation, whether you're considering these medications, already taking them, or trying to make sense of the hype. You belong in this conversation. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Unbodied Love, where we're rewriting the rules around food, body image, and self-acceptance. I'm Dr. Meredith McKenzie, therapist, coach, and your guide to a life free from diet culture and food guilt. If you ever felt stuck in the cycle of binging, restricting, or struggling to feel at home in your body, you're in the right place. Each week, we'll explore emotional eating, body image, and joyful movement through solo episodes, expert interviews, and real-life coaching sessions. Because your body is not the problem. This is your space to learn, heal, and finally break free, and to discover what it means to love the body you're in.
So this is a topic that I have been wanting to share about for quite a while. It is something that comes up in my sessions with my clients pretty frequently, actually. And so I want to acknowledge that if you're listening to this, you may be feeling curious, hopeful for yourself, confused or uncertain about whether or not this medication is for you or if you should even be trying it, and even maybe ashamed around Ozempic or GLP-1 medications and even having conversations about them. In the 2+ years they have really been mainstream, I know the conversation and the sentiment towards them has really changed. And because of that, you might have had a whole host of emotions about it or thoughts about it, thinking that absolutely not, I could never try that, to, maybe me. Maybe they are the answer for me. Or maybe you're on one and thinking, this has been fantastic. Other people I've spoken to have said, I will never touch it again. And because of that, I think that we see a very tidied up, or the version of the story that the person sharing typically wants to share. And I won't say that I don't have a bias myself, or that I don't have ideas myself, opinions myself, and that can be a completely unbiased conversation. However, I think that what we see a lot of times on social media, even in the articles that we're reading on different websites, there is very much a one-sided invested interest in those things. And it can make it really confusing to know where we stand or what information we should be taking from these different places. So I want to share that my own position is that as a therapist working with individuals who struggle with binge eating, emotional eating, anorexia even, the full range of disordered eating and eating disorders, I see this topic coming up again and again in my private practice, not just online, but with real clients that I'm working with. And real emotions are at stake. Sometimes the clients come to me because they are already working with a weight loss management clinic, and their doctor that they were working with saw this as an opportunity for them to work on the psychological component of their relationship with food. And that's how I end up working with a client who is on a GLP-1 medication. In other situations, it's clients that I've worked with for quite a while, and these new possibilities are coming up. And so I thought it would be interesting for me to bring some of the conversations that I am having with my clients to the podcast and to start sharing them here. I will hint and kind of tease that my next episode that I'm going to be having out, I'm going to have a guest on who is currently on a GLP-1 medication. And she so generously offered to share her experiences, both with me and with this audience here. So I'm so grateful for that. And she comes with her own biases as well, right? It's her personal experience of what is going on in her body. And I thought it was so important for me to preface that episode with my own take, a little bit of the research that's going on right now, what I'm seeing in my practice, what I'm seeing working with other professionals and medical doctors, and to be able to, yes, be just one of the voices out there talking about this. But that's where we're going to go with this. So I really want to affirm that this episode is not about shaming anyone. And that is something that I have talked to you about with, not just clients that I work with, but other people that are close to me in my life. The question has come up within some of my social circles of, I am not quiet about my opinions on body acceptance and the work that I do and how strongly I feel about supporting women in loving the bodies that they're in. And it has come up from some people that are they able to talk to me about being dissatisfied with their bodies? Or am I expecting them to love every part of themselves and to kind of push that out of their minds or even out of the conversations that we're having with one another? And so I want to be really clear. No, those feelings are normal feelings. I feel those things. And if you are feeling uncertain about your body, dissatisfied with your body, insecure, all of the feelings that you might be feeling, I do not want to shame anyone with this topic or this episode of what we're going to be talking about. However, I do want to use this as an opportunity to provide a range of information so that I can protect anybody. And maybe that's taking on too much responsibility. I'm not your therapist if you're listening to this, but I want you to have more information, more ammunition almost to protect yourself if you're feeling pressured. I also want to honor the nuance of this topic and offer something that's grounded, informed, and from a science-backed lens. So throughout this episode, I'm going to be exploring the thoughts that I've had, observations that I've had in clinical practice, as well as what I am now developing as my own opinion, looking at both sides at the same time. And I work with people who are both taking GLP-1 medications and those who have decided not to, and that is not the right decision for them. Ultimately, all bodies and all decisions are welcome here. So let's just lay a little bit of groundwork about what GLP-1 medications are and how they work. The formal name is a GLP-1 agonist, and in order to understand how they work, it helps to understand how they naturally occur within the body. So the GLP-1 is a hormone that your small intestine makes, and it has several roles, including triggering insulin release from your pancreas. Insulin is an essential hormone that allows your body to use the food that you eat for energy, and it lowers the amount of glucose or sugar in your blood. If you don't have enough insulin, your blood sugar increases, which leads to diabetes, and that's what people with type 2 diabetes are experiencing. It also works on blocking glucagon secretion. So glucagon is a hormone your body uses to raise your blood sugar levels when necessary. So GLP-1 prevents more glucose from going into your bloodstream. It also works to slow your stomach emptying. Slower digestion means that your body releases less glucose or sugar from the food that you're eating into your bloodstream. And finally, it works by increasing how full you feel after eating, or what we call satiety. GLP-1 affects areas of your brain that process hunger and satiety, so that reward system of your brain. Now, GLP-1 agonist medications work by mimicking this hormone. In medication terms, an agonist is a manufactured substance that attaches to a cell receptor and causes that same action as the naturally occurring substance. So in other words, a GLP-1 medication will bind to the GLP receptors to trigger the effects that the GLP-1 hormone has naturally. Now, a higher dose of GLP-1 agonist will result in more extreme effects. So that is what is typically happening when we're taking a GLP-1 medication. If you have type 2 diabetes, the medications actually help manage your blood sugar by triggering your pancreas to release more insulin and slow your digestion by helping to decrease blood sugar spikes. The satiety effect of a GLP-1 agonist reduces your food intake, appetite, and hunger. So these combined effects are what result in weight loss that people are talking about. Medications like semaglutide, which includes Ozempic and Wegovy, and tirzepatide, which is Mounjaro, were originally developed for managing type 2 diabetes. However, they are now increasingly used off-label for weight loss and with new popularity as obesity drugs. I want to explain what off-label means. This is an unapproved use of an approved drug. So this term can mean a drug that is used for a specific disease or medical condition that it is not approved to treat. And medical doctors have done this in all sorts of ways with all different types of medication. So you might have heard that one drug is approved for something in particular, and now it's being used in this different way. I think I'd have to do my research for sure to confirm this, but an example might be Champix. Champix was a medication that was originally developed as an antidepressant, and then it ended up being used off-label, or maybe then being rebranded and then approved, but to be used and under the name of Champix for using for cessation of smoking. So there's different medications that exist out there that were originally approved for one thing and are now being used for something else. The reason I bring this up and why I think it's important to talk about GLP-1s being used off-label for weight loss and as an obesity drug is because it's important to recognize that researchers, medical professionals, all of us, we're all human beings. And even though we have that white lab coat effect and we have so much respect and these people are highly educated, I don't want to take that away by any means, but we're all human beings. We all have bias and we all have areas of our practice that we are not thriving in or that they're not our area of expertise, even if we are very experienced in other areas. And this is an issue that I often see. I work with incredible professionals. I just want to say that up front. I work with so many family doctors who really try their hardest. And I want to believe that, everyone is out there doing their best and does not have any ill intent when they are prescribing medications or anything like that. I'm not trying to bash anybody here. However, what I have noticed, having worked in the eating disorder field for the number of years that I have, is that family doctors are expected to carry such a load of understanding so many different medical concerns and to be able to, see someone for a very short period of time in their office and make a determination of what that person needs and prescribe them the medication and hope that they're going to get better. And unfortunately, because of that, they can't be experts in everything. And very unfortunately for the clients that I work with, I find that there are, I don't want to say the rare, but a percentage of medical professionals who are not experts in disordered eating disorders, and it can really have detrimental effects on the clients that I end up working with for the people who are vulnerable to these things. This looks like not doing a full assessment of whether or not that person has a history of an eating disorder, if they are susceptible or vulnerable to an eating disorder, how they are behaving with their relationship with food. What I talk about so much, and you'll learn more about this from listening to the podcast, and I'm going to be getting into it in future episodes, but the way we view obesity, weight, and our eating behaviors has been so pathologized in our society. If you go to your doctor, I feel like the number one recommendation is going to be, well, if you just lose weight. It's like so easy that if you just lose weight, it'll cure so many of your physical ailments. And all it takes is diet and exercise in moderation. And that is something that I've heard medical doctors tout for years. And it's very, very simplified. I believe that it doesn't really capture the full nuance of what's going on for an individual. And I think for that reason, too, can be incredibly shameful for someone who is struggling with their weight and struggling with their relationship with food and their body. And it just minimizes what it is that they're experiencing. Because of this, I think it's important that we do recognize that this medication is being used off-label at the discretion of the medical prescriber. And there is going to be bias that comes with that. If a medical doctor has a bias that somebody should lose weight and that weight loss is the ultimate goal and that is going to ultimately result in their health, I'm not going to get into it here, but I am a very big subscriber of health at every size and is going to focus more on the physical attribute of the weight a person carries on their body versus the behaviors that they're engaging in. I worry that they are at a greater likelihood of prescribing a medication to somebody who is maybe not a good fit for that medication, or that medication's not a good fit for them. I'm taking a quote here from the Cleveland Clinic, and they explain that these are very powerful medications that affect us hormonally, digestively, and neurologically. These are important systems within our bodies, and they're not just weight loss shots that should be taken frivolously. The FDA has approved GLP-1 medications for treatment of type 2 diabetes and obesity, and is also being explored for conditions like PCOS, binge eating disorder, substance use, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And in particular, these medications are hoped to target the weight-related complications or believed complications that would result in elevated health risks. So this does go back to my questioning about health at every size, and can a person be healthy at any size? If you're wanting more information about that, I will be covering episodes on that in the future. I also have a YouTube video that I'll link below so that you can watch that after this episode. But as I have been going through the literature, I have not been finding the exact weight-related complications showing that they are decreasing. And it may be just that we are too early in the research process and that people have not been on them long enough to really demonstrate those things. But that is the hope. So let's talk a little bit about the access to these medications. When they first came on the market, they were prescribed primarily for type 2 diabetes treatment. And then, wind came that they actually cause a significant weight loss benefit for some people. And that started the whole flood to the market of, I want to get my hands on these things. We saw maybe some celebrities that were suspected to have been taking these medications, and the demand for them grew for weight loss. And at that time, it was very difficult for many people to get access to them. So in the beginning, when pharmacies had a certain supply level that were intended for use for people with type 2 diabetes, and family doctors or medical doctors were sending people with prescriptions for weight loss, the demand for the medications outweighed the supply that they had access to, which ended up being a really scary position for people who do have type 2 diabetes, were prescribed these medications to help with their disorders and were unable to get access or had really sporadic access to the medication. The cost of the medications was also incredibly high. And I do know in some situations it still remains high. So these were things that were really affecting people and their desire to get access to them and their ability to get access to them. As demand has exploded, many people have actually started accessing these medications outside of a safe prescription. If you open your phone, and I live in Canada where I suspect, or I believe, I feel like I've been made to believe that the marketing that we're receiving on our phones and that kind of thing is somewhat safer. Maybe it's not, but advertisements are everywhere. I remember when they first came out, one of my clients telling me that she saw one on a subway, that they're all over your phone. It doesn't matter if you are like myself, somebody who really, really stays away from any of the diety accounts, or like my algorithm should be fine-tuned to not be showing me this information. And somehow it has clocked that I'm female, that I am, or at the time was approaching 40. I'm now 40 years old, and that I have 2 children. So therefore I must be concerned about the way my body looks. And I am targeted like literally every time I open Marketplace on Facebook, and I'm just looking for baby shoes and Monjuro. They're all there. And so there are lots of options now that are outside of the bounds of safe prescription. You can order them online. You can get a compounded version. You can get doses that don't actually have any kind of medical supervision. And I think for a lot of people, even in the advertisements, that's advertised as a positive. Get it now without having to talk to your doctor. Get it now without having to do an assessment. These medications are available pretty much on demand. And the problem with that is that we don't know what is in these medications. In April of 2025, so just a few months ago, the FDA put out an alert warning about the compounded GLP-1 medication, saying that they are providing unsafe dosing. You're not under anybody's medical supervision to say, yeah, upgrade that or, titrate that down. So you're really you're really making these decisions for yourself based on what you feel is right. And while I'm also listening to your body, I don't think this is where you want to do that. They have had concerns about contamination. Do you even know what is in it? The fake formulations that you don't even know what combinations of medications were used and have resulted in hospitalizations of people. A recent article in JAMA Health Forum, or JAMA Health Forum, highlighted their concerns about aggressive marketing that we see everywhere of unapproved compound GLP-1 medications. And these often actually bypass the regulatory oversight that we would hope would be there so that we know that we're safe. I feel like we have this false sense of safety because generally our world has been safe, but we favor the convenience of having access to these things. And so many people are willing to say, you know what, as long as I can get access to it, as long as I don't miss my dosage, I'm okay with it. And companies, the ones that are profiting off of this, they know that they have eager people who are going to pay them good money to be able to access it. So they are, maybe foregoing some of the more safety protocols in order to make that profit. Now, these risks are often downplayed, especially when the marketing plays on the fears about a person's body size and offers you that illusion of control. Buy it now. You can do this. It could be at your front door tomorrow, and you can start your weight loss journey right away. Like, it sounds fantastic, especially for somebody who has been struggling with their body weight and feeling not at home, disenfranchised from themselves even. And the solution is here and it can be at my door by tomorrow. And this is where I want to bring up, it's actually quite an old study from 1994, but research has shown what drastic lengths people will go in order to lose weight. And this includes, women at all ages, including elementary school children. There was a research study done by Crandall in 1994 where they said that people would rather give up a year of their life, maybe even end a marriage, to be thinner rather than living in a larger body. And Schwartz et al. In 2006 found that they would rather lose function than live in a larger body. To be able to give up so much of what we consider valuable of life in order to live and inhabit in a specific body, it doesn't surprise me that somebody might be willing not only to, withstand all of the negative side effects that we've heard about for some of these medications, but also to potentially just risk it all and take whatever medication that they find on the internet. It makes sense. And to me, that just feels so predatory that these companies are taking advantage of somebody's insecurity, of their hopes and dreams and what they want for themselves. And to be doing that, right in front of us. So that is something that concerns me. That is something that I've been hearing more and more about. And I think it's important for us all to consider as we're thinking about the future of these medications. Now, social media and the influencer culture is nothing new. However, what we have been seeing, I think, particularly since COVID, when there became this shift from, okay, I'm home in my house all day. It was a beautiful time for the body acceptance community where we really started to see a surge in people wanting to jump on that bandwagon, which I was all for. It was a wonderful time. However, we also know that people were really struggling with their relationship with things like alcohol. We did see a surge in people who were struggling with eating disorders, particularly binge eating. And there really became this surge in the biohacking kind of field of things where influencers were using and sharing so many of the different brands that they were using to, biohack their health, and that you can do this too. And here's my affiliate link. And we see these people that we really aspire to be like. They live in these beautiful homes. They live these beautiful lives. They don't seem stressed at all. But we have to remember too that they can portray whatever they want for a camera. You don't see the back of my head right now where my hair isn't, curled and perfectly done. Not that the front is either, but we can portray whatever we want to the 15 minutes that we're on camera. And this is what has been happening too in this field, where if I want to put out whatever image of myself I want to, I can portray myself in an inspiring way, in a way that really encourages you to say, hey, I could have that too, if only I spent this money. So influencers and even wellness brands began starting to promote GLP-1s as a biohacking tool or an easy fix. And I have seen this across the gamut online. I don't know if it's, again, I was targeted by it even before, but now I have started really looking at it. In the beginning, or I know that there are accounts that exist that are people who are legitimately trained. They are medical professionals or within the field of medicine. They probably, or I know that they work with clients who deal with type 2 diabetes, or they work with people who are struggling with severe risks of health because of potentially their weight or something like that. And I think that there's really good people in this world who want to do good things, who want to help their clients. And they may be talking about GLP-1 medications from an educational standpoint. And then it kind of degrades from there, in my opinion, to be honest. Like it dilutes itself. It becomes this like strategy of selling to your insecurity, and we will buy it. If we see you taking it, we will buy it. So what can be incredibly disturbing is the trend of seeing people who are already living in conventionally thin bodies, and they're microdosing to stay smaller or to push their weight to even a lower limit with language that sounds like it's just benign. It's even empowering. Like, this is your opportunity. You could do this too. How I'm biohacking, like it feels like quick and easy tips, like taking a glass of water in the morning when you wake up and going for a walk after dinner, and then just do your microdosing. Microdosing, I feel like, is a trending word right now because it is something that we see people doing online, and it's normalized for us. And it seems so simple and easy when, again, these are medications that are affecting us hormonally, neurologically, as well as our digestive system. There tends to be this casualization of this powerful medication, and it distorts our understanding and further pressures people who feel left out of this so-called solution. Because we see it everywhere, and because when we see something on our phones that's in a very, vulnerable state, let's say we're laying in bed or we're sitting on the toilet, we're breastfeeding our babies to sleep. These people are in our homes. They are in our personal, intimate space. And there does become that parasocial relationship-ish, even if it's somebody that you don't really know, of like, if they are doing it, I can do that too, or it's not that big of a deal. And I think it's just so important to recognize that this would have been information that you would have had to go to your family doctor's office, probably somebody that you would have had to know fairly well. They wouldn't have been giving this out at a, walk-in clinic. I almost liken it to ADHD medication. How many people do we know who are struggling with ADHD? And yes, there are concerns that it's been overdiagnosed, but personally, I don't agree. However, getting stimulant medication, which, yes, is also very serious medication, is incredibly difficult. If you want an ADHD diagnosis, many family doctors will say, I don't think that I'm qualified to assess whether or not you have ADHD. I'm going to send a referral to a psychiatrist who you will see in 4 months. Maybe it's different in the United States, but you'll have to wait this amount of time. You will then meet with this person. They're going to go through their assessment list. And it's even more grueling, actually, if you go to see a psychologist who will put you through a battery of tests to determine and diagnose whether or not you have ADHD. And then they will prescribe you your stimulant medication, and they will strongly track you to make sure that you're taking it appropriately. And if you go to your pharmacy and say, hey, I misplaced my ADHD medication because I have ADHD and I don't remember, they'll question you and they'll say, sorry, I can't give you that, or they'll give you a bit of a harder time, or they'll make sure that they call your family doctor. That is the complete opposite of what I've been seeing with GLP-1 medications. I almost feel like it should be a test. I don't want to do this, but I feel like I could just go to a walk-in clinic and I could get it diagnosed and given to me pretty quickly. That is the power that I think this medication has, that it has brought everybody to the party to want to be a part of it and not want to miss out, to feel like, am I making the wrong decision if I'm not on this? Because everyone seems to be on it. And it has created such an ease to it and so much empowerment to it that it becomes something that's so easy for people to get. So now I want to talk a little bit about what happens on a psychological level, what I'm seeing in my office with the clients that I'm working with. So I have seen clients in a whole range of stages of recovery from their eating disorders. I have worked with clients who are, a little ambivalent about where do I want to go with this, all the way to clients who are in recovery but are still struggling with their body image. Because quite unfortunately, that is how recovery tends to go. We recognize that there's a problem. We create the behavior change that is necessary in order to start seeing those changes in our physical bodies, and we start to feel healthier. However, on a psychological level, it can be incredibly difficult to see changes in your body or to grieve giving up the eating disorder. And struggling with body image longer term is unfortunately the norm. And that is something that I work with clients on all the time. And then, as I mentioned, I have also, since GLP-1s have been introduced, worked with clients who are referred to me from medical weight loss clinics in order to address that psychological aspect. The idea being that if they're on the medication for, say, 2 years, they reach their goal weight, strong air quotes there, that then they will titrate off the medication, and they know, and the research has shown, that once you go off the medication, your urges to binge and your hunger are going to come back. The things that we have heard from people about the benefits of these GLP-1 medications, and the very hyped up word that I'm hearing everywhere now, is the food noise. It reduces the food noise. I don't have that food noise anymore. And oh my goodness, can I relate and empathize with that feeling? However, research prior to GLP-1 introduction has been that primarily the food noise is a response to starvation, to not getting adequate food. It is our body's natural response to not getting enough food. And that can happen as well if you are psychologically feeling restricted from food. So even if you're physically eating enough food, it doesn't mean that your brain feels rewarded enough. And if you're saying to yourself, well, I shouldn't be eating these things, I shouldn't be eating them, then it can kind of haunt you. I'm going to give you an example. For myself, my eating disorder years might have been that, I don't know, I like salty snacks. So let's say, I know right now, I went to the movie theater last night with my son, that I have popcorn downstairs and I would be thinking about it all day. But I might be telling myself, no, you can't have it. You've already had it already. You had it yesterday. It should be gone. And I'd just be sitting here thinking about it all the time. It would haunt me. I would think, well, I could just go downstairs and have a little cup. I'd have a little cup and then I'd want to go get more. Just the example. However, that full bag or half a bag or whatever I have left is still down there. I'm not interested in it at all right now. And so I want that to be the example of how therapy and working through these things can actually decrease and eliminate food noise. And so that is one thing these GLP-1 medications do. However, they don't resolve the emotional eating or the body distrust. If anything, it's going to increase body distrust because you're telling yourself, yeah, you're right. I was out of control with myself. I couldn't trust my body. My body was working against me. And I needed this medication in order to get to this point. And it doesn't solve the shame. If anything, it is teaching us that thinner bodies are the better bodies. This is what everybody's doing. This is what I should be doing. And if I still live in this larger body, well, what does that say about me? In some cases, they can actually intensify obsessions around food or the rigidity you have around food or even food anxiety because your hunger cues are going to disappear and you're not going to be eating as much, which means that you have to mechanically eat. You have to remind yourself to be eating, which can then be a new challenge for somebody. And when you do eat, it might feel like you've failed, or if the medication is wearing off and you end up experiencing a binge at the end of the week, it can feel like, well, what am I doing here? I'm on this medication, but why am I still binging? The other really big concern that I have is that I have experienced clients who seem to be inadvertently feeling rewarded by eating disorder-like behaviors. So skipping meals, super common if you're not hungry and you're feeling nauseous. Suppressing hunger, eating very small portions, or even talking about it and, celebrating and saying, oh, look at me, like I haven't had to eat very much, or I didn't eat much today. However, because this is a medication and this is a medical protocol that this person is on, these behaviors get legitimized. They are told, like, well, yeah, this is the way it's supposed to be because you're on this medication. This is part of the treatment plan. Which is just so funny because we've got other medications that are meant to help us eat. And like, when was it ever healthy to skip entire meals? When was it ever healthy to go to bed feeling so uncomfortably full that you're still full the next day? And then this even becomes celebrated. Wow, she has lost so much weight from not eating. Now, I want to reflect something to you and have you think about it. If you notice one of your coworkers at work and they told you that they were skipping lunch every day, that they feel sick when they eat and they're proud of it, before GLP-1s, you'd be concerned. Like, that is very concerning behavior. However, on a GLP-1, this gets reframed as doing the right thing, that you finally found that discipline. And that to me is so concerning, not just from that individual experience, but from the global or, bigger picture experience that these types of behaviors, like, we're just going so far back from all of the progress that we've made. And that is a massive concern for me about all of the work that we've done as a field, as well as women, as people in general, to feel better about ourselves and our bodies. And this moment feels painful because we have made meaningful cultural progress towards body diversity, health at every size, body acceptance. I know it wasn't enough. I know it wasn't perfect. And I know that there is still so far for us to go in those areas. But it feels like the wind has completely been taken out of our sails for that. The rise of GLP-1 medications feels like this pendulum swing back towards uniformity. Everybody being cookie cutter, the same shape, that we are really praising that one particular body type and size without celebrating the differences that come from being a human being, the beauty of the way our bodies are just as they are. And for me, there is grief in that. There is a lot of grief in that. Like, even sitting with my clients in sessions and hearing how they talk about themselves and that they really are considering taking medications that will change them. And like, after all of the work that I've seen them do and the empowerment that I've seen them have in accepting their bodies, to then see this as the better path, it is so difficult. And at the same time, I have so much empathy for them because I know the way things wasn't perfect. I know that body acceptance and body diversity and health at every size and all the things that we've been trying to work towards wasn't perfect. Like, they aren't perfect. We live in an inherently unfair world where even if you want to believe those things, we do have this ingrained set of beliefs where we do, think negatively about ourselves. We think negatively about our bodies. And there will be life experiences that validate all of those things and make us feel totally crummy. And I have so much empathy for the clients who have struggled. And I think this will come up in next week's episode as well, of like, the world treats people in larger bodies so horribly and makes you feel like you are just not a good enough person, that you are either disregarded or invisible, or you are shamed and seen in a terrible way and less than other people. And to feel as though all of your efforts are not good enough, that people think, not just that are you not good the way you are, but you're clearly not trying hard enough, that you're not putting in the effort that you should be, or you don't have the discipline, and applying all of these negative characteristics to how they see you just because of the way your body is. I can understand. I can totally understand why taking a GLP-1 medication that is going to change that and help you feel like you're allowed to just sit at the table with other people again, why that would be appealing and why that would feel empowering. And yeah, I think that that is just what I grieve. I want to own that that is my grief. And I don't want to put that on a client or anybody out there who's like, oh, well, Meredith is grieving that. Yeah, that's just me. And, that's something that I'm going to work through. I think it's incredibly difficult too to see how the straight-sized bodies, not only are they being celebrated, but it's seen almost as a way of like optimizing your size. Like, I really question like how thin is thin enough. I see people who I think would be considered conventionally thin, and their body type would have been the celebrated body type. That's not to say that not everybody has their insecurities about themselves, but that then they are still tweaking or microdosing their GLP-1 medication and getting thinner and thinner and thinner. And like, when is it enough? How do you know what your body needs in order to function well? Are you working super closely with your doctor? And I don't think it's just doctors, but like, are you working with an endocrinologist? Are you working with somebody who understands female hormone health? Like, where is that going to draw the line for you to be aesthetically the size that you want to be? Because that's not a medical concern. That is, that is a diet. That is a harsh diet. It really sends the message that there is still only one right way to have a body, and that smaller is always better. And at the same time, for those who have lived in larger bodies and faced the stigma, it can feel like this medication is like finally leveling the playing field between us. And that duality is real. The problem isn't the person who wants the relief. The problem is the system that has made that relief feel necessary. And so let's go back to that ideal thinness and how people have talked about in the research in the past that they would be willing to sacrifice their health just to fit in. This isn't just about a preference for being a certain body type. Like, the stakes are deep with this. Again, going back to that research, that they would rather give up a year of their life, end their marriage, lose physical function of their body than live in a larger body. Some people say that they would rather be blind or lose a limb to be fat. This is all coming from research studies. And these beliefs reflect that it's not just an individual preference, but it's deeply rooted in cultural fear that fatness, and it's obviously driven by bias, exclusion of that person. It's like a systemic harm that happens to people, that they feel like they are not a part of society fully unless they are in that smaller body. And quite unfortunately, the implicit association test and research on it has shown that anti-fat bias not only exists and is widespread, and it may be increasing. And is that a result possibly of our, society's current perspective on using GLP-1 medications, and that we should be taking these? Now, research on GLP-1 motivation and why people are taking it. A 2025 study in Body Image surveyed 225 college-age women, and those with higher body shame, weight concern, and internalized fat bias were more likely to express interest in taking GLP-1s, even when warned about the side effects. People with a history of disordered eating or extreme dieting were more likely to tolerate the risk. So we see that whole list of risks and possibilities. Some people say I don't experience it. Others, are very clear that they have had them. And to imagine that I'm willing to tolerate that, and it's because you have that internal vulnerability to harm your body in the past, that weight and the way your body looks is more important than taking care of yourself. That, again, is not to shame anybody, but it makes me frustrated and angry for you that is happening. Those who appreciated and respected their bodies were less interested in these medications, even if they had body concerns, because who doesn't? The main takeaway was that many people are drawn to GLP-1s not for health, but for relief from shame. And that is a critical distinction. This is a medication. This is emotional work that needs to be done. And the health part of it is not always the focus. And that is a concern. Now, if you're considering or currently taking a GLP-1 medication, I want you to know that you're not bad or broken for wanting to feel better. That shame is real. But you deserve to ask yourself, Am I doing this for freedom or for control? What happens when I stop? Who benefits if I stay smaller? You can take these medications and still do the deeper work. Like, that is a possibility. And that is what I continue to do with the clients that I'm working with. And I am so grateful for them that they want to continue to do that work, because it's so complicated. That deeper work of attunement and body trust and emotional healing is truly something that no medication can give you. It is going to pause that experience for a period of time, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to get over that, because if you do stop taking the medication, it most likely is going to come back and maybe even be harder because you've had this experience. I want to reinforce that I welcome clients who are curious about this medication, who are cautious about it, or even currently taking GLP-1 medications. You're welcome in my practice. We're welcome to chat. Come talk to me on Instagram. I want to be there as a support for this other side, this emotional side of the work that still needs to be done. My work is about exploring the why beneath all of this. The why, the what is happening, the how do we get you closer to truly loving yourself beyond all of this. I hope that this information was informational, gave you something to consider and think about these medications maybe from a different angle. And I want to be here as somebody who can support you in making decisions that are really aligned with your values without shame, and to make sure that you're feeling supported in making whatever that decision may be. So next week, I'm going to have Kathy Olson on the podcast, and this is such an amazing conversation that I had with her. I think it really touches on the nuance of the decision of starting a GLP-1 medication. It is a really honest look at her personal experience, and I want to be clear, it's her experience and it doesn't necessarily reflect anybody else's experience. And I think that that deserves space, even as we hold space for the complexity of it. So in closing, I want to say to you, you're already enough. Your worth is not measured by your body size or how well you can suppress your hunger or your self-denial. The real revolution might not be in shrinking your body, but in reclaiming how you trust yourself. However, whatever path you're on, wherever these new medications may lead us, and the ebbs and flows that are going to happen in our society regarding how we accept bodies, I want and I hope that you will feel peace because you deserve it, support and freedom, and not pressure to conform to someone else's idea of health or beauty. You're not alone in this conversation, and you're not doing it wrong.
That's it for today's episode of One Body to Love. I'm so grateful you chose to spend this time with me. These conversations around food and body image can be deeply personal, and the fact that you showed up today open and curious means more than I can say. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Come connect with me on Instagram at Dr. Meredith Mackenzie. Send me a message, share what stood out, or just say hi. If you're ready to take the next step toward food freedom and finally feel at home in your body, head to meredithmackenzie.ca/OBTL to learn more about the One Body to Love program. You'll find everything you need to begin healing your relationship with food with support every step of the way. If you're enjoying the show, one of the best ways to show support is by leaving a quick rating and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening. Your words help more women find this space and feel less alone. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You deserve a life of peace with food and your body.